Guys, several months back, JSAUX sent me their transparent backplate for the Valve Steam Deck. I thought it looked quite cool, but I was surprised when I installed it that having this area here to act as sort of an additional heat sink actually made a measurable difference in the internal temperatures, the thermals of this device. Now, this area gets quite warm to the touch, but luckily your hand's kind of out of the way of it. You're typically not going to be touching it all that often, but again, it made a pretty noticeable difference in the thermals. I've posted several videos about this already, but basically something like, 2, 3, 4 degrees Celsius lower temperatures, or typically what that's going to amount to, because the fan speed is variable. Normally it means the temperature stays about the same, but the fan is able to run a little bit at a lower RPM, which is going to save you potentially some battery. It might preserve the life of your fan a little bit. You could also push the fan speeds up and keep a lower temperature, which could extend the life of your battery and other internal components. At any rate, running at a lower temperature is always going to be to your advantage to some degree, even if your frame rate isn't going to suddenly jump up, because that's just not how the Steam Deck is going to work. Lower temperatures, typically going to be a good thing. This thing was $29.99. Now, a couple of weeks ago, they reached back out to me and they said, hey, we're making a new version of this same backplate, and we want to send it to you as well and let you test it. This is the new version. Same price, $29.99. So I have it here. We're going to do some preliminary tests, some benchmarking with the old one, again, just to get our baseline. We're going to swap it out. You're going to see the whole installation. And then we're going to see if this new backplate, which has some new stuff going on, we're going to see if it lowers those thermals anymore. So right now we are on the original JSAUX backplate. I can't really show you there, but trust me, it is. We are outputting onto this external monitor just to make things more visible. And I'm using the Fantastic plugin. And I've got this bad boy cranked up to effectively 100%. And you can see there, I'm right around 74 degrees Celsius. If I come over here, 72, 73, depending on GPU and CPU. I've let this thing sit for a good while, so I believe that is where it has kind of stabilized out. So now we need to swap this thing out, install the new backplate, and see if we get different numbers. So we have the new transparent backplate from JSAUX here in front of me, and there are some relatively big changes to this thing, which I think is going to make it interesting. The test that I'll do a bit later, I'm really curious to see how it's actually going to pan out, what kind of results we're going to get. So just like before, I believe this is going to be the shoulder buttons of varying height so that you can kind of dial that in the way you want. We also have all of our tools, the little fingertip gloves, screwdriver, all that stuff. Great to see. And of course, the back plate itself. And as you can see here, one really big difference is that right there. There is an opening for this thing to actually allow more air to pass through. You can also see that this area here that's making contact is actually quite a bit smaller. I'm gonna have to take off the old back plate and we can really kind of dive in and see much more closely what's going on, but that's definitely smaller. That's definitely new. I don't know if these buttons came pre-installed last time. I think I had to install them myself. So I'm glad that the stock ones are already on there. That's gonna make my life a lot easier. So this is the old one already installed on there, and you can see that's where the fan is, and that's where that is sitting. So that's actually going to allow fresh air to come in right on top of the fan. Very interesting. So what we need to do first is we need to uninstall this back plate and then go from there. As always, don't forget to do that. That's very important. If you fail to do that, you're going to snap it in half. And that's a bad time for everyone. Now, last time, I was able to do this without stripping any screws, and I'm hoping that that's going to be the same situation. Again, this screwdriver, I think, is new. This is quite nice. Look, this spins. It feels pretty good. This is an upgrade as well, I believe. Look at that. I like this screwdriver. Okay, we're gonna pause and we're gonna, through the magic of editing, we're gonna jump ahead to where this is done. Okay, so all the screws are removed, and just like last time, we're gonna use this little pry tool to kind of get a hold of a spot here. I think this was the spot that I always kind of started at, and you can see there we are popping free. It's going to be stuck together over there, so be aware of that if you're making the swap from old to new. If not, it's not going to be stuck there. There's adhesive there holding that together. We're going to come over here. This is much more difficult when you're trying to do this with a camera in the way. It's all just kind of held together with clips. So as long as you've got your SD card removed, you should be okay. So I've got it apart. This really, really wanted to stick to that. In fact, it actually started like pulling that up a little bit. So that's a little bit of a bummer. Let's set this down real quick. So one thing I'm already noticing is that this piece is one consistent piece. Let's flip this over and you can see this. Yeah, look at that. So this is now one consistent solid piece where it was two. And of course, this little adhesive thermal pad thing is also smaller, and then of course you have the cutout there. Otherwise, this looks to be pretty much identical. This part's really quite simple. It all just kind of snaps together in a very logical way. Just kind of give it some pressure so that you hear those clicks. And we're pretty much snapped together now. And you can see that it is fitting together quite well. You can see that actually looks kind of cool sitting right on top of the fan. Interesting. Okay, let's put the screws back in and we should be good to go. Last but not least, we have to reinstall the SD card. Let's turn this thing on real quick and let's see if I can actually like feel air coming out of the back of this thing. Oh, I can hear it. Yeah, you can definitely feel air going in. And it's definitely louder. This has made the fan more audible for sure. So keep in mind that the sound right now you're hearing is exaggerated because I am running Fantastic at 100% RPM. I'm blasting this fan to do this test in the most consistent way that I can. But that has definitely made it louder. So now what we need to do is I need to let this sit here. I'm going to turn off the custom fan curve. RPM is falling. We're going to let this thing get up to temperature. I'm going to turn the fan curve back on, let it stabilize, and then we will compare it to the old backplate. All right, guys, so we already have a pretty interesting result here. As you can see, we're not running the custom fan curve just yet, which means we're just letting the fans do whatever it wants to do. And what you're seeing here is we're already running at about 74 degrees Celsius. So with the fans not maxed out, we've already hit about the same temperature as the old backplate was reaching with the fans fully maxed out to 100%. It seems like we've stabilized now, again, maximum fan speed, and we're sitting 65 and 66 degrees. It's going to average it out here to 67 degrees, and maybe that's just taking the CPU temperature. Who knows? 67 degrees. We are a full 10 degrees cooler than with their old backplate, which, again, was already significantly cooler than the stock backplate. This is a lot more impressive than I was expecting. And one additional little advantage I was noticing is that what they've done is they've taken that metal plate and they've taken it from being external and they've made it internal, right? On the old one, that metal plate was exposed. So when you touched it, it was very, very warm. So what they've done now is it's not there anymore. So this area is hot, but it's not nearly as hot as it was before. So not only is this thing running cooler than the old backplate, they've fixed this problem with that super hot area to the side, and it's still the same price, $29.99. I think that this is a pretty darn good upgrade. The only problem I could possibly see is that this could be a weak point. If something hits it, perhaps it could damage your fan, but you'd have to hit it pretty directly with something kind of sharp. It would be an odd thing to have happen. I don't think that's something that's likely to occur. I think this thing's pretty solid. I think it looks just as good as before. One minor critique is that the circle is kind of like not centered on the fan. I guess you could have it centered on the device or centered on the fan, but so the fan's not perfectly centered on the device, I guess. So that's kind of like a bit of an OCD nightmare. But otherwise, it looks good. It feels good. The temperatures are lower. What's really not to like about this thing, guys? I don't know. I'm going to drop a link in the description down below. If you purchase it with that link, I will earn commission on that. Big shout out to JSAUX for sending this thing out. As always, no money has changed hands for this review, and they will be seeing the review at the exact same time as you are. Guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.